Welcome back to Same Right Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to sew a well-fitted pencil skirt with elastic band and back slit, as you can see. So here I'm making use of 2 yards of fabric. You can also use 1.5 yards to achieve this skirt. So I placed 1 yard of my fabric on fold. In fact, the measurement I have here is my hip divided by 4 plus 2 inches. So my hip divided by 4, I've marked it and I added 2 inches to it. That is how I folded the first part. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to rule my border line and now take my vertical measurement. So to take your vertical measurement, you'll be placing your tape, because we have a band of 1.5, just place 1.5 inches on that line, and then you are going to take the measurement of your hip line. So the hip line I'm working with here is 9 inches. So I'll just go ahead and mark 9 inches. And the knee line I'm going to work with, my knee is 22. I counted 3 inches up and marked at 18 inches. Okay, so then my skirt is 42 inches in length. I added 2 inches, which is 44 inches, as you can see. So that is how I got my vertical lines. So after that, we'll start to impute. Well, I'm going to cut it off now. That is the excess I had. I'll cut it off. Then I'll come back to the waistline. So I place my tape on the waistline. There is no dart to this skirt, so I just added my waist divided by 4 and added 2 inches. Then I also add my hip divided by 4, added 2 inches. Then whatever I have on my hip, including the 2 inches, I'll just take away 2 inches on the knee line. So I took away 2 inches and marked. So on my hip, I'm taking it again. I measured and took away 2 inches. That is how I got my knee line. So I'm going to connect right now with my hip curve. So I'm connecting the waist to the hip. So you can see how I placed it. So you just place your hip curve on the mark we marked, including the seam allowance, and also connect it to the knee line. So you can see the hip curve gave exactly the shape of the hip. So whatever I have on the knee line, I'm going to take it to the hem line. So I just mark it and I'm going to use a straight ruler to connect. So I'm connecting the knee to the hem accordingly. So after connecting that, the next we are going to do is to cut the shape of this skirt, and this will serve as our front piece. So I'm cross-checking my measurements to be sure they are correct before I cut. So I just decided to do this skirt without a dart. It's dartless, but it gives you that perfect fit. So I'll go ahead and cut from that hem. I'm cutting to the knee line on the chalk line I made, and I'll cut it off. So here is our front skirt piece, and it's actually very much ready. So I'll add half an inch to sew my band. So just add half an inch. So make a notch at the center front too. So I'm going to place what I have on the front piece of my skirt on the remaining 1 yard of my Ankara, the remaining 2 yards, sorry, and I'm going to create my seam line of 1 inch for my zipper. So the center front is placed at the center back. So just go ahead and create 1 inch for your zipper. That's all. So we are going to make just little adjustments. So extend the lines of your waist and your hip to the knee line accordingly. So we are going to mark 1 inch on the waist and on the knee, but the hip line we are not connecting anything. This is the butt allowance. So just go ahead and shaping it the way I'm marking now, the butt allowance. So we are going to cut all of those parts off, but we are going to replace those 1 we took on the waist on the side of the skirt for the back. So I'll come to the waistline for the back. I'll mark the 1 as replacement. Then on the knee, I'll also replace the 1 but on the hip, nothing is happening there. So I'll connect from that 1 to the hip and connect from the hip to the 1 I replaced for the knee. Then the down part, so I'm trying to highlight the line. So the down part where we have the slits, I'm going to cut off all of this area. So since I'm cutting all of those areas, I also added 1 on the side for the slit area, because we are going to cut off the 1 zipper allowance on the slit area. So you replace them on the side, and that is exactly what I'm doing right here. So I'm ruling my line on the side to add up for the replacement. So now I'm going to cut including the replacement, as you can see right here. So I'm cutting, then I'm cutting the butt allowance. So you have to put this butt allowance. It gives your skirt a perfect shape. So that's what I'm doing right here. So now our skirt is ready right now. So the next I'm going to do is to make a notch on the zipper allowance. So make sure you make a notch at the 1 zipper allowance, because that will help us to sew our zip accordingly. So you can see what we have. I've already cut out my lining for the front piece of this skirt exactly the same way I did for the skirt itself. So you go ahead and cut your lining for the front, and also cut the lining for the back. So here I've cut the lining for the back too. So you can see I have 2 pieces of fabric and 2 pieces of lining for the back. So we will now go ahead to sew this. So I'm going to sew the center back of this, the back piece first. But I'm going to first measure my zipper line. So I'm going to mark my zipper at 9 inches. I'm marking my zipper at 9 inches from the waistline, and I'm going to run my stitches from the part I marked. You can see I've already shaping the skirt using my hip divide by 4, waist divide by 4, and all of that. So these are the chalk lines you saw on the lining of this skirt. So my slits, I'll just come up at the point of my knee line. If you want, you can go above your knee line. Your slit can be at 18 inches or 20 inches from the floor length. So I will repeat the same for the fabric too. So what we are trying to achieve in this class is to attach our zip to the fabric of the back skirt. So I'll make sure the slit for the lining and slit for the fabric are all equal. So that is what I'm doing right here. So I'm securing with my pin, because I'm going to sew the 1 inch from the zipper to the slit first and give it a good press. So you can see I just did that for lining and for fabric. So next is to attach our zipper to the fabric part. So I'm going to first sew the lining of the front and back. I'm going to couple lining together and couple fabric together. So the lining does not have a zip, but my fabric, I'm going to sew a zip to it after coupling. So you can see I've coupled everything. So I'll just go ahead and sew my zip. So after sewing my zip, the fabric of the skirt is very ready with zip, and I'm matching it with lining. So both my lining and my fabric, they are equal at this point, but I'm going to reduce my lining by 1 inch. Reason is because we need a perfect inseam finishing. So I'll just cut at 1 inch right now. So at the end of the day, we can turn our lining with the fabric and have a perfect inseam finishing, which we are looking for right now. So this is the easiest method to make a back slitted long pencil skirt for beginners. So if you follow this method, you always sew your skirt for every size perfectly. So the next thing we are going to do now is to match the zipper for the lining and the fabric. So I want you to watch what I'm doing here. I'll just fold in the lining of the zipper and turn it with the fabric, as you can see me do right here. So you have to face them right side to right side. The right side of the fabric on the zipper has to match with the right side of the lining. Then you secure with your pins. You go over and use your presser foot and stitch on the side of it. I'll also repeat the same thing for the other side of the zipper too. So with this method, you are going to have a perfect inseam finishing for your zipper. So you can see I'm done sewing and I'm turning the skirt. So right here you can see the zipper is neatly finished. So I'm trying to arrange the waistline because after sewing them, you are going to match the waistlines together. So, and arrange them appropriately. So next is to sew the slit. So once you are done sewing the skirt, the zipper, you can see how I'm stretching it to make sure it is equal. The lining and the fabric is equal. Then secure with your pin. Then move ahead and sew your slit. So I'm going to also sew this slit the same way I stitched the zip. But I'm going to fold in 1 inch of the lining and the fabric, as you can see. Then turn it around to sew 1 inch to the end of it. So I keep sewing to the end of it like that. So you can see I'm done sewing right now. So you can see lining is shorter, but I left 1/2 inch on the lining. I didn't sew to the end so I can be able to stitch the down part of this skirt. So you can see how I'm turning it inwards again. We are going to sew the down part of it. So this is how I match the skirt. So I make sure I match it from the beginning. The lining will start from the beginning and match the seam allowances. I'll secure them with my pin and I'm going to stitch close completely. So after I'm done stitching, I'll come back to that little opening we have right there and open the seam lines and follow the 1 inch slit line and sew down to close that opening. So for you to understand this class, please make sure you practice what you are watching, or else it will look like film for you. So just go ahead and do exactly what I'm doing so you can understand it well. So now I will turn the skirt around. I'll just go ahead and turn the skirt around and give it a good press and arrange it appropriately. So you can see what I have on the slit. We have a perfect inseam finishing right here. So the next we are going to do is to stitch the band area because we are going to attach our elastic to it. So I'll measure what the waist of my skirt is. So there I will use exactly my waist measurement which I measured, and I'm going to cut a band. I'll cut a band of my waist measurement, add 2 inches to it. Then you can see I folded one edge and the width of the band is 4 inches. So I folded 0.5 inch because that is the part we will use to top stitch. So I'll just go ahead and fold my 4 inches band and stitch the size at 1/2 inch. So after doing that, this is what I got. So I'll go ahead and stitch the other part that is not folded. You can see how I'm placing it right now. I'm placing it right side to the wrong side. Starting from the beginning, I'll go ahead and stitch round first before I use the 1/2 inch I ironed to top stitch. But now I'm going to sew my elastic band. So you are going to measure your nipple to nipple and add 1 inch to it on one side. So whatever we have right there remaining, I'm going to cut it. I will cut it with my elastic. So I'm going to measure what was remaining and cut my elastic. So I cut my elastic at 7 inches and I'm going to place it from that line to the other line, as you can see. So I'll just go ahead and stitch on the band. I'll go to my machine and place it and stitch on the band. So I'm going to cut both of them right now. I'm marking it again, my bust points divide by 2 plus 1 inch. That is where I marked. And my elastic is 7 inches, but this 7 inches is not for all sizes. It's what is remaining after marking your bust point plus 1 inch to the side. That is what I cut. So you can see how I'm pinning it on the band area. I'll also take it, measure the same bust point divide by 2 plus 1 inch and extend the 7 inches band to it. So since this is elastic, it will definitely stretch to hold the waist line. Okay, so I'll go ahead and hold it down like that. So I'll go and top stitch on my machine. So I'm done top stitching. You can see how it came out on the band. So I'll just go over to the machine now. So I'm going to sew top stitch on top of this, and once I get to the elastic area, I'm going to stretch my elastic. So I'm done with it right now. So next is to run a straight stitch to hold it a little bit more. So I'll run a straight stitch on my machine. I'll drag it open and run. So here you can see what we have, and that is how we'll come to the end of this tutorial. So I believe you learned a lot from this class. So if you are new to this channel, please kindly subscribe and turn on your notification bell. Don't forget to share this video, like this video so it goes viral for me. Okay, so we upload videos every day on this channel, so keep following SLIT, and thank you very much. Bye.